So this evening we're going to talk about robots in the household, and we have got two speakers who I'll very briefly introduce. So Dr. Lulu P on that side is a departmental lecturer at Oxford at the Department of Education, and she is also a research associate at the Oxford Internet Institute and Sociology Department. And as far as I can see here, Lulu has two big things going on. So one is a project funded by the British Academy on educational technology. But this evening she's going to be focusing more on her other project, which is domestic AI at the Oxford Internet Institute, looking at the transformation of paid and unpaid work in the age of AI and robotics. And then from Japan, we have Dr. Yumiko Oda, back here for the first time in about 9 years, I think. She's Professor of Marketing at the Faculty of Commerce at Nagoya University of Commerce and Business. And before going into academia, she worked in companies including Canon, Dow Jones, and Dream Incubator. And in academia, she's focused on consumer culture, with a particular interest in how emerging technologies influence domestic life, gender roles, and care. So that's all the introducing I think I need to do, and I'll hand over to Lulu to give the first presentation.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the introduction. I hope everyone can hear me. If not, do let me know and I will shout even louder. So I'm going to talk today about the future of unpaid work, and as Jason has said, I do have these two strains of research going on. One is more on education technologies. If you have any questions on that, also very happy for you to ask. But otherwise, the focus of today's topic is more unpaid work. And this is joint work with Japanese colleagues at Ochanomizu University and Hitotsubashi University. And we started this project about 2 years ago. So I'll have two sets of findings today that I want to present. So the first part, the basic question here is how much time are we likely to save with automation technologies? And with smart technologies or automation technologies, we mean things like robot, but also, for example, AI and things like this. So it's quite a rough definition of what we mean here. And how did we come about to ask this research question? It started with because there's a lot of research on automation in the labor market, and there's some anxieties about the robots stealing our jobs, but there's actually not so much research focusing on the unpaid work. However, we do spend a lot of time doing unpaid work, as I guess everyone knows, because I guess everyone is part of that and is involved in doing unpaid work. Just looking at the OECD numbers, in the UK is almost 0.5% of the time that people spend on unpaid work, lower in Japan, however. So it's a big chunk of our life. So we want to also know how can technology affect that side of our life. And the second motivation to do this project is we want to contextualize predictions, because how predictions are usually done is taking predictions as an objective number. So if experts, for example, say you can save half amount of the time, we take that as an objective sort of truth. But coming from more sociological side or social sciences, we want to take predictions as also a social fact. So not only as this is what is going to happen, but we want to contextualize that in a social situation, understanding what are the backgrounds of these experts, which can determine their predictions. So these are the two motivations. I'm not going to spend too much time on the methodology part, but basically we did a Delphi survey, which involves experts in the field of technology and unpaid work, or work in general. And it had 2 rounds. So first we started with survey conceptualization, then we invited these experts to join. And what we asked them to do, maybe I'm just going to jump to the next slide to show you, we asked them to predict how much time you can save in the next 5 to 10 years with smart technologies. So these are people with tech background. So these are experts in tech. And we asked them to predict the time saved for 17 different housework and care work tasks. And these 17 types of work were taken from a time use survey. So the 17 tasks together, they cover everything that we do basically at home. And how the survey looked like is, in the first part, we have this short description about how we define this task. And what you can see here is teaching your child. And then we tell them, okay, this is the scenario that you should be imagining. This is your current pay. This is the current time you spend on doing housework and paid work. And now, please indicate how you want to choose each of these options to do this work. So in this case, childcare. From extremely unlikely to extremely likely, we ask them whether you want to use smart technology or hire a human or do everything yourself, or ask your partner if this is a person in partnership. So that's sort of the setup of this survey. Since it's Likert scale, and this is the outcome variable that we're going to use in the end to analyze the results. But maybe just back to the method here, we had 2 rounds. First, the expert answered all the questions, and then we look at the means and distributions of the responses. We wanted to find the extreme outliers, that is, those who say only a very tiny amount of work or very big amount of work is going to be automated. We reached out to them to understand their justifications for that. So that was the only qualitative part of this otherwise rather quantitative study. And then we had a second round with exactly the same questions, but then we provided some of these qualitative justifications of the experts so that they can understand how other people think about this. And in the end, we saw some convergence of the predictions. And on the right-hand side, this is just to show you the makeup of the experts that we reached out to. We had 65 experts in total, slightly more in Japan than in the UK. We wanted to have a gender balance. And also, we had people across different industries working on tech and time-saving technologies in doing housework. So academia, R&D, and businesses. That we just seen, and the results, without taking too long, just jumping to the results. For the next 5 years, automation is predicted to be about 27%. And for the next 10 years is higher, 39%. So I think, I remember when we were publishing this, this is what the newspapers tended to pick up. So the newspapers were all like 39% of automation. You can say 39% of time, but this is actually only half of the story that we wanted to tell. Of course, this is interesting, but we were also very much interested in understanding the context. That is, who were these people making these predictions? But here, just to show you the breakdown of the automation that we looked at, these are the 17 different tasks, ranging from grocery shopping, dishwashing, gardening, to more care work on this side, and care for adults, interacting with your child, escorting your child, and so on. And on the bar, on the vertical bar, what you can see is the percentage of automation that is being predicted. So what is quite obvious is, I think, all the housework, that is more routine work, the predictions are much higher for automation. That is more on that side. And care work is predicted to be more difficult to automate. So that's more on this side. That's something that we kind of also predicted. But it's nice to see that this is indeed the case. So now the breakdown of how did the experts actually predict this by contextualizing that with their backgrounds. What this shows is that we have the experts' predictions here in Japan, and this is UK. The light blue bar is female experts, and the dark blue bars is the predictions of male experts. And what I thought interesting is that in the UK, male experts have a much higher prediction than female experts, and the picture is exactly the other way around in Japan. And we thought, oh, that's interesting. Why is this the case? because we thought that the UK picture makes a bit more sense because we know that men are usually more optimistic around technology than women, but we don't see that in Japan. So we look into the qualitative answers to find the qualitative answers given by the experts to find some answers. And it turned out that in Japan, actually both male and female experts would say that, for example, say the likelihood for automation is to be very low because it's going to be very expensive. Therefore, it's not worth to automate this task. However, that would be more male experts saying this, and female experts would say, yes, it's true, it's going to be very expensive, but it's totally worth it. So we thought that was quite interesting because, of course, it has to do with labor divisions, right? So women tend to do all the housework and more also going to the labor market. So we talk about this double burden of women. So that was a justification for most of the female experts who say, yes, it's going to be really expensive, but it's worth it. Therefore, we predict high degree of automation. So that was one of the explanations that we found in the qualitative answers. I will skip this in order to stick to time. So some conclusions for the first part. The future of unpaid work is likely to be maybe around 40% in the next 10 years. And we also found that the context really matters. That is, we shouldn't be taking predictions as objective truth, but we need to embed them into a social context, understanding that experts do predictions based on their own lived experiences. That's, I think, one of the main takeaway from our side as social scientists in this study. The last one I'm going to skip because I didn't talk about that too much. Part 2. So this entire study we had 2 parts. The first part is about the prediction from the expert sides. And the second part was understanding what are actually the willingness of people using this sort of smart technologies when they are out in the market. So the research question here is understanding the willingness of using smart technologies in homes, especially looking at teaching. Would you use AI to teach your child? And the reason why I'm looking into teaching is because, actually here, so we remember this, housework is predicted to be more automatable than care work, but teaching was kind of an exception. So teaching was the highest rated or highest predicted to be automatable in comparison to other sort of care work. And that also relates to my other part of research, which is looking into digital education. So that is why the findings that I'm going to show you are especially related to teaching your child. How willing are people to do that? So the willingness to use tech for teaching. Some of the hypotheses are listed here. So I thought that, well, parents' socioeconomic background must matter, right? So the usual suspects. And also parents' time and financial resources, the price, productivity of the robot, attitude towards technology in general. Now, I think I switched them, sorry. So the sample is, it was a vignette experiment. So we asked everyone to imagine this hypothetical situation where they have to do this housework, that is teaching your child. And we had over 3,000 of the vignettes were about teaching your child. And the average range of the age was from 19 to 70. And we also asked about their background, so there's their education. So what was their highest education? So these are the sample of people that we asked. This is only in the UK, not Japan. The first part was Japan as well as UK. And you can see a breakdown of male and female and single and cohabiting respondents. So it's all quite hypothetical. They had to imagine this future scenario where they had this smart technology and they could rate whether they want to use it or not. The analysis is basically using the variables that matching the hypothesis. Now, I hope that these graphs are okay. They're not the most beautiful graphs, but they do show some information. So this now shows the willingness of people to use smart technologies across these 17 tasks that I was presenting in the beginning. You don't have to read all of that. So on the horizontal line is basically the 17 different tasks, ranging from more housework or routine work to more care work. And what I circled here is what we're interested in here, so the teaching child. And I always have these two different figures for cohabiting respondents and single respondents because it does really matter. So there's always this difference between the cohabiting and the single respondents. That's why you always see the two sets of different results. So for the cohabiting respondents, the willingness to use a robot or smart technology to teach your child is significantly there. So it's people are willing to use that. But that you don't really see for the single people. So there's some differences. And also quite interesting, especially now for the cohabiting respondents, is that you see quite a lot of like high willingness to use robot for housework, but not so much for care work. And this is sort of replicated here, but except for teaching your child, which is quite interesting. And then this is another comparison between education level. So because one of the hypotheses is that it depends on your own education level, whether you want to use smart tech to teach your child. And again, the differences are there between the two groups, between the cohabiting groups and the single respondents. What we can see for the cohabiting respondents is that people with A levels, so one of actually the lower educated people and the very highly educated people, so people with graduate degrees, these are the two groups who tend to say, yes, we want to use smart tech to teach our children. And the groups in between, less so, which we don't see at all for the single respondents. So for single respondents, there's not really significant differences between the education groups. And the next thing that I checked for was the resource that you have. So your resource in terms of your time and also your financial resources. And again, the differences are there between the cohabiting and single respondents. For the cohabiting respondents, we can see that your own work, the hours of your own work, that is, the more you work, the more you are likely to say yes to use this smart technology, which makes a lot of sense, right? Because you don't have so much time. And what is also significant there is your partner's wage. So the higher earning of your partner, or the more your partner earns, the more likely you are saying yes, which also kind of makes sense. But then we don't see that for your own wage, which is a little bit strange. And what also matters is, of course, the price of robot. So the lower the price, the more are people willing to get it. And it also depends on what we told them in the beginning. You also have the choice of using human for this task. The higher the human wage to do the same task that is teaching your child, the less the higher the wage for the human, the more you're willing to use a robot, because there's this difference. But for the single respondents, we can only see a significant effect size for the robot price. So it doesn't really matter how much you earn. It doesn't really matter how much time you spend on doing housework or paid work. It's really just the price of the robot, which is quite interesting. So I think that is something worth looking into, the different dynamics between couple households versus single households. And in the remaining 2 minutes, I think I will be okay. Yes. here, because I think the difference is quite interesting, but then we also need to think about that, especially in cohabiting households, there's a gender dynamics, right? So usually we do have women working more on housework than men. So the next check that I did is to compare whether there are any gender differences in terms of their responses. And again, we see more differences for the cohabiting people than for the single people, which makes sense. For the cohabiting respondents, even though the differences between female and male respondents itself for the different working hours are not significant, but you can see, for example, for 4 hours of working, that is, for example, you need to work for 4 hours a day. There, men are more likely to say yes to use smart technology to teach a child, whereas the effect size for the women is not significant. And that's also true for if you work 12 hours. So in general, men are more willing to use smart tech to teach children than women. And that is not observed here in single respondents, which I think is really interesting, because the part of the difference is likely to be explained with gendered roles in household, because you can see that here, but not for the single respondents. And perhaps just the last slide to wrap up. Again, looking at gender differences, but now this is the productivity of the robots. So that was also one criteria that we varied. The robot can have different productivity. So we say the robot with robots, you can save 50 minutes of your time up to 100 minutes of your time. And of course, the higher the robot's productivity, the more people are willing to use the robots. But what we're interested here is more the gender difference. And again, we can see that across robot productivities, men are more likely to wanting to use robots than women. And again, this is not the case for the single people. So very last slide from my side, just to wrap up the conclusions here, is that the most stable factor is the price of the robot. The higher the price, the less likely are you to choose this. And cohabiting people and single people, they have shown very different answers in this survey. And we do see a gendered decision-making, especially for the cohabiting people. And also attitude, which I didn't show you today, matters. But just maybe very quickly summarize attitude towards technology. We ask a bunch of questions such as, do you trust technology? Do you think that there are problems with data privacy and so on? And there we can also see some correlations. That is, for example, the more skilled people are with tech, the more likely they're using the tech. So that's all from my side. Thank you very much for your attention. And looking forward to questions.
Okay, my name is Yumiko Oda from Japan. While Dr. Lulu presented the macro level of future of the technology adoption, I will zoom in on the everyday micro interaction in the technology adoption using robot vacuum cleaners. And let me introduce my research motivation. Whenever this type of robot is not common now, but every time we try to integrate into the technology in the house, we have a big debate. There is a positive side that the technology make housework efficient or make it things easier, or the negative side is that high tech worth buying for such an easy task, or she trying to shirk her responsibilities. This type of contradiction in some years will cease and become naturalized. But how this contradiction will come to end. It's my research motivation. These conflicts continued throughout the post-war period in Japan. For example, in 1950s, the president of Sanyo Electronic stated that the greatest difficulty in popularizing washing machines was public perception that modern young wives are all about making things easy. And creating the corporate marketing section, creating discourse that they don't make household chores easier, but they make more time. They can make more time for their children. So this type of strategy was employed and continues to be even now. For example, Panasonic company employed dishwashers by saying efficient for washing, but it didn't work, and they returned to make more time for children. So this is same to Roomba advertisement. They're saying that create more family time with Roomba. So never say like efficient, time saving. And here also they use we choose Roomba because our baby's playground is the floor. So they buy because of the efficiency, but save children. It could be the good reason to buy. Here's the reference for the housework and childcare time spent over the 20 years. Over the 20 years, although technology adoption is development, but still women spend about five times than men, and more than that, the child care is decrease of 50 minutes than compared with 20 years ago by decreasing of housework. So how mothers with children engage with robot vacuum cleaners after purchase is my today's main focus. So again, I will clarify the purpose and research question. The how household robot build relationship with consumers. And research question is how do consumers build relationships with robots in the process of using it? And how does the use of robot vacuum cleaners and the relationship built around them affect the division of household labor among family members? And this is definitely a case study based on the interpretive approach, based on semiotic. In 2002, iRobot launched Roomba in Japan. And since then, the iRobot is #1 share in Japan, like 74%, so giant company in Japan. And now household penetration rate in 2021 is 7.2. And at that time, they said that the image of slacking off on household chores is a barrier to adoption. So they have a big struggle to diffuse the robot vacuum cleaners. And I conducted depth interview with 30 married women using online, and all interviews data ranging from 60 to 90 minutes per participant. And total 350,000 words were recorded, transcribed, and coded. And also, as a supplementary, I used the SNS like X, Instagram, YouTube, and personal blog. And then analysis, I didn't explain deeper, but I conducted like inductive analysis and deductive analysis. And finally, goes to findings section. In terms of relationship with Roomba, a married woman had a relationship 3 times servant, child, and friends. Servant is viewing it as a tool, so it's just like a tool. And child is more emotional being, such as children, pets, or needing care. And friends is also emotional being, but it's more than like equal partners or companionship. And I will explain in detail from the servant. This type of relationship, servant, they recognize it as a tool by helping her complete her own tasks. And this type of relationship, is more common that women raising children who work full-time. And they appreciate efficiency and time saving are the goal. And they use the smart functions, and such as remote control while away from home. And they're quite satisfied when they operate as instructed. And they're saying that it's just AI, so I know it has its limitation. Though if we properly grasp its strengths and weakness and use it well, it is helpful without any issues. And then they recognize that dysfunction cannot be helped. And also they devote time and money for ancillary object for smooth autonomous drive by saying like, when I first bought it, it caused a series of troubles such as knocking over plants and sucking up carpets, but by tidying up things on the floor beforehand and securing carpets with tape and buying baskets to avoid putting small items directly on the floor, I have been able to use it without any problem for the most of the parts. So before start using cleaning, they spend a lot of time and money. But as long as cleaning time is saved thanks to robot, they considered to be effective. In terms of feminism perspective, it considers as a perfect woman. And they strive to balance work and housework, childcare, without relying on their families. By saying like, I'm doing more manageable tasks at work, and it's getting pretty hard, but that doesn't mean I can't clean. Even if work keeps me busy and I have no time, I can't help thinking, should I really be leaving the house this messy? So no change on the division of household roles, although they use the robots. That's the servant relationship. The next one is child. This type is less on efficiency and more on improving the quality of cleaning in order to take care of the family. So they don't even seek saving time. They don't use smart function, but prefer manual use by watching their movement in real time in the home. Like they're saying like, if I leave my Roomba alone, it eats a variety of things. It suck up debris. So basically I use it while I can watch it move, or when doing other household chores. And they perceive this function as cute, or even sometimes feeling sorry for them. One woman said, my Roomba trips over minor bumps, starts crying if something gets a little tangled up in it, or if it gets caught on something. And I found it super charming, and it's so sweet. So by saying like relationship, robots result in becoming a care recipient, originally purchased to care for the family members, to clean the room, but using it in time-consuming way, the scope of care extended to robot vacuum cleaners. And for then, for this type of woman, in terms of feminism, definitely said as traditional at-home mother. they buy a robot in order to care for the family. The woman said it's hard to reach under the sofa and bed with a normal cleaner, so I bought it when my child started crawling after I noticed they're licking various things on the floor. So again, they buy for child. So, and no change on division of household workload. And they use robot in order to improve the quality. And sometimes, in many cases, they increase the frequency of cleaning. So now they say like, I can now clean the floor twice a day, morning and night. It's really useful to be able to clean under sofas and other hand-to-reach area more often. That's the children. And now, friend, third type, last one, robot as friend. Rather than letting robots clean, robots themselves are acting involved in the family by saying that, example is here, my kids don't listen to me even though I tell them to clean up quite often. But my Roomba make a beeping sound and start moving, they suddenly start cleaning up, saying, oh no, he will eat my stuff. So yeah, eventually they will, the children start to clean their home by, and a lot of users play with it many ways, like put the cat on it, feed it, name it, and decorate this, like this. And also decorate them using Swarovski. And like Roomba, brands leverage the consumer-robot relationship. So like consumers who bond with their robots often share the experience on social media. So iRobot actively monitors and engages with these posts through retweet and comments. And even that the company further promotes intimacy through Roomba decoration contest like this. And also like funeral service for aging or broken unit, like this. So this is funeral. So every year they hold funeral things. So like these activities reinforce emotional connection and encourage community participation. And consumer-robot relationship becomes not just personal, but publicly circulated and brand enhancing. So the company itself take advantage of the relationships they once they find. Again, friend, yes. And as a friend, for them, this function as funny. Say like when the Roomba stops and goes missing, I file a search request, and my kids happily go searching for it. So they enjoy if Roomba stuck, in a sense. And this is we call the creative woman, which is transform the labor of housework into rewarding work through her own creativity. And robot itself encourage tidying up while eliciting children's initiative. For example, like kids who want to play curling are all trying to keep up with the Roomba while cleaning up with the Swiffer sweeper. I guess they think they're doing the sweep roll or something, but it's really fascinating because they are defeating the purpose of the Roomba's work. So here it's reconfiguring the division of role in domestic work. Like in the process of entertainment, family members have been involved in proactively in housework as fun. So it is kind of the start to change the gender role, but this type might be temporary. Finally, the family members get bored with this entertainment usage. one woman said that at the first everyone was interested in it, but now my husband complains that it's too loud and the kids are bored with it. They used to fight with their siblings over operating the button, but that's all gone now. And after that, the family and robot network that were connected through the entertainment gradually become disconnected, and coverage only via the connection between the wife and the robot. But for wife, saying like, in the end, I operate everything, but it's okay. I know what the robot is and is not good at, so I can make full use of it, which is reassuring. And a lot of women saying that it's like my partner. So, summary, we have a three type of relationship with robot: servant, child, friend. And common thread in three types is peacefully navigate the contradiction between adapting the social responsibility of household chores and outsourcing them to a robot. And they accept themselves as the main actors in housework labor and have less need to reduce time despite the advent of robots. And what is unique about in Japan is compared with US studies of consumers, the use of robot vacuum cleaners feel that they could increase the amount of free time and improve their well-being. But in Japanese context, Japanese users remained in a time-consuming relationship after using the technology in a way that was consistent with traditional gender norms. Thank you.